Jaziun Patterson has committed to Iowa. Have heard rumblings now for a while that this may happen. I'm not going to really get into ratings. I know that everybody wants to talk about star rating and whatnot with recruits. That's not really my shtick. I don't really read into that. I remember that Shawn Green was a 2-star recruit. And, of course, we know Shawn Green was soon thereafter the Doak Walker Award winner. So not going to get into that this evening, but did want to just take a couple of minutes to talk about the implications of this commitment for Kirk Ferentz and this staff. First of all, huge for the 2022 class in general. I know there's been a lot published about this class kind of being behind and struggling from a numbers standpoint. And again, there are a lot of struggles across the country as it relates to numbers, just with the landscape and COVID and just trying to recover and trying to get kids on campus. Everything has been a struggle this year and, of course, last year. So the 22 class was sort of behind, but some of those struggles were kind of across the country. I think Iowa, there was some room for concern when you looked at where they were in comparison to other Big Ten schools. But this has been a good month for Iowa. Remember, they picked up Addison Ostrenga, the tight end that Iowa needed a tight end in 22. They got their tight end, and they needed a running back as well. They got their man. So let's talk about Jaziun Patterson here for a moment. 5'10", about 190 pounds. Your typical, I think your typical sized running back at this level, but a guy who I'm not in for comparisons. I'm not a big guy in comparing guys who've not done anything at the collegiate or pro level to former collegiate players and former pro players. But if there's one guy who does sort of remind me of Jaziun Patterson, that would be at the high school level. That would be Shawn Green. I know a lot of people are going to laugh at that, but if you look how Jaziun Patterson runs, I'm not saying he's going to become the player that Shawn was at Iowa or even in the NFL, because Shawn did have several good seasons with the Jets, I believe with the Titans as well. But Jaziun Patterson is built sort of similar to how Shawn Green was built back in 2004. I don't know exactly what Shawn, he may have been a little bit bigger than Jaziun, but Jaziun, if you look at him, this kid runs strong, he runs big, he's a hard guy to bring down, and this is a great get for Kirk Ferentz and a huge win for Ladell Betts. Remember the kind of change there at the offensive side of things, not only at running back position, but at the offensive line position, with George Barnett now taking the place of Tim Polasek. But we know Ladell Betts taking the place of Derek Foster, who's now coaching at the NFL level. This is a huge get for Ladell Betts, and maybe a sign of things to come for Iowa. We know Iowa's most recent, I believe their most recent commitment was Devin Hilson, who's now on campus, a 2021 recruit. As far as running backs are concerned, the 2021 recruit who will play this year. We anticipate, I would expect him to see the field on special teams at least 1 or 2 games, unless he's just absolutely not ready. But looking forward now, kind of projecting forward to 22 and beyond, Tyler Goodson, we don't know, where he will be. Will he leave after this year? Is he that good? I think he could be. And, you've got Gavin Williams, Lashawn Williams, Devin Hilson behind Tyler, and, of course, Ivory Kelly Martin. Kelly Martin, I believe, has another year given the COVID season last year if he chooses to stay. He could also choose to leave and play somewhere else, or he could choose to just walk away. That's his decision. But this is a good running back room, and the commitment of Patterson today has made this a very solid room. And we'll just have to wait and see implications-wise. We know this is the era of the transfer portal, so I'm not implying that all of these running backs are going to be here to stay. But if Iowa can hold on to Lashawn Williams, Gavin Williams, Devin Hilson, Tyler Goodson, heading into next season, that is going to be a pretty impressive-looking running back room. Again, I look at how Jaziun runs, and he's the type of running back that typically does pretty well in the Iowa system. I even think of moving past Sean Green, think about guys like Lashawn Daniels, very solid guy who was productive for Iowa for several years. Certainly, a guy like Mark Wiseman, of course, he was a former fullback, bigger guy. Of course, he's bigger than Jaziun, but the guy who kind of has that running style. Whereas you look at a guy like Tyler Goodson, more of the shifty, break your ankles type, not maybe to the extreme of a guy like Akram Wadley, but a guy who can really run between the tackles, hit holes hard, typically has success in the Iowa system. Of course, I know a lot of people like to criticize the Iowa system because of their zone scheme on the offensive line, but I think Jaziun fits the mold of Iowa running backs, and this is just a huge get for Iowa. And again, the 22 class looks just fine. Now let's run through who Iowa has committed right now. Aaron Graves was committed, one of the first, I believe the first back in 2019, out of Gowrie. Caden Crawford also committed, defensive lineman out of Lansing, Kansas. You've got Bostic, the kid out of Illinois, who committed at wide receiver here just a few weeks ago, which was huge because, again, the numbers were not looking great as far as total numbers for the 22 class. Jack Dodsler, another guy out of Wisconsin who is a big offensive lineman at 6'7", who I think certainly fits the mold of an Iowa tackle or maybe even converted tight end, depending on his development. And then, Kel Crow out of Huxley, just south of us here. Well, I'm not in names right now, but south of From the Hawkeye of the Storm in Huxley, inside Story County. A guy who a lot of potential, again, could see him, who is 6'6", developing into that typical Iowa tackle. And of course, we know Jaden Montgomery, Carson May, the quarterback out of Oklahoma. Now, Strengo, we mentioned him at tight end. The guy who was previously committed to Iowa baseball and now is an Iowa football recruit and commit. And now Jaziun Patterson. So it is a good day. This is a big deal. I want to stress this. I know that this is a very fluid situation. You never know when kids are going to decommit or transfer or whatnot. But this commitment for Jaziun Patterson coming to Iowa is huge. Again, running style A, and just B from a numbers standpoint. I'm not even talking about ratings. I know he was ranked high from a lot of, I think ESPN had him as a 4-star. I couldn't care less. I don't, especially at Iowa, I just don't care about ranking these guys anymore. I just don't think it matters. I was excited when Devin Hilson committed to Iowa. Not as excited as I am today, I don't think, but excited nonetheless. And again, credit to Liddell Betts. You've got to think that he had a huge role in sealing the deal on a kid who had offers from a lot of Power 5 programs and a lot of big-time Power 5 programs. Let's look at some of the offers that Jaziun Patterson had already rolled in prior to his commitment to Iowa. And the first one that jumps off the board is certainly noteworthy, and that is the Alabama Crimson Tide. They did offer Jaziun. Arkansas offered Auburn. Let's run through this entire list to give you kind of a whole scope of things as far as how coveted this kid was. Alabama, Arkansas, Auburn, Florida, Florida State, Indiana, Maryland, Miami, Michigan, Missouri, North Carolina State, Nebraska, Ohio, Ole Miss, Oregon, Penn State, Pittsburgh, Southern Miss, Syracuse, Tennessee, A&M, that's Texas A&M, Utah, Maryland, Maryland did not offer, but Utah did. Rutgers showed interest, no offer there. But again, this is according to 247 Sports. The point is a ton of attention around this kid, and rightfully so. Go ahead and look at some of this tape, and you'll see this kid. It really pops out, really stands out on tape for his ability to stay vertical, but also to get lower the pads, and stay on his feet. And again, just a hard guy to bring down. And you've got to think, again, his running style, that he will bulk up a little bit once he's at Iowa. Huge get for Liddell Betts, huge get for Brian Ferentz